Next page. So that's that. We did one column.
Oh.
She's going to look under the group. Still.
Some good.
Yes.
You could have been rich. I was up there waiting for somebody to say,
Yeah.
she took off first.
So they're all.
Somebody else tried to say they were trying to, because she's a program or whatever. Yeah, Sunday, yesterday. Yeah. You better not be talking down to the east. And off the cashiers and stuff like that. Walk outside.
Well, I don't know. Feel free to. I don't watch. I promise.
Alternate options.
You can see exactly what they got for it.
Yeah, we're done.
That's in there. It's in there.
Sewer's on there.
Yes.
Call this meeting to order, Stuart City Council tentative agenda, Monday, April 11, 2022, 6:30. Council chambers, call to order. Kirkpatrick?
Here.
Morgan? Here. Dolly?
Here.
Renslow?
Here.
Kavah?
Here.
Agenda approval, consent agenda approval of minutes, 3/14/2022. Approval of financial statements as of 3/31/2022. Approval of bills as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Renslow, second by Morgan. How do you vote? Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Renslow?
Yes.
Kavah?
Yes.
Just want to say that you see the last bills from Beverly Wild. This is just current and previous balance, and this is the last one.
That's it. Just
Yeah,
get
that's
her done. Okay.
Thank you.
Dick, can I ask, there was a sealed envelope in our packets, and they were complaint forms on a
Yeah.
couple streets. Can we give those to Jim Henderson
He knows about it. Yeah.
to look at, and if he and the complainant don't come up with something that they're agreeable, then we can talk about it next month?
Yeah.
But we can at least
Yeah,
set
I'll talk to
a
them.
timeline and try to get something figured out with those.
You can have my copy here, Jim. Yeah. Okay. For ash trees and parking, Jim talked.
Okay, the opinion we got back from the attorney was just basically what our city ordinance is anyway. We did a survey of all ash trees in the city right away and classified them as in good condition. So I think if you guys all got a copy of my monthly sheet, it shows 36 pours, 70. We've already removed 32 ash trees from the sports complex. There are 29 more to go, just there alone. There are 5 in City Park, and then the rest of them. These will be accomplished by ourselves with cooperation of the utility department, allowing us to use their bucket truck, which they have, or different places. We've been the North Cemetery, when we cleaned that up from the storm damage, we rented the man lift from Napa, because that bucket truck's way too heavy to get in amongst the stones and stuff. So we rented that man lift from there. These will be done as time allows. The ones that are too large for us to handle, then we'll be taking bids to have those removed. But it's just gonna be a phased process. The ones that we've cut down, yeah, the bark is fracturing and falling off. Some of the smaller, sticks and twigs and stuff are falling out of the trees, but the majority of the wood itself is still very, very solid.
Yeah. One tree service guy told me it's good, but if you wait too long and they start getting punky, then you're in a dangerous situation. Cutting into it. Okay, that's all. I just want everybody to have an update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, Fire department, Josh?
Good evening, number one. First off, I'm here for the approval of the fire officers for the next year. They would go as myself, chief, Stephen Martinson, assistant chief, Shane Martinson, first captain, Corey Geisinger, second captain, Jim Henderson would be first lieutenant, Steph Carr, second lieutenant, past chief would be Cliff Renslow, and I think I put in there the booster president as well, which raises quite a bit of funds for us, as Corey Klein. So I need approval on that.
Make that motion.
Okay, moved by Kaba, second by Morgan. How do you vote? For Patrick?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Renslow?
Yes,
Kaba?
Yes.
Thanks, Joe.
I have a couple others.
Okay.
So, as you guys read in my statement or my report, the storm sirens are up and operational, hopefully just in time, for maybe tomorrow's stuff. The last thing I have is the purchase of a new truck. Ash and I have been working, couple, 3 months, 4 months. Previous council approved a 5-year rotation sort of deal for the first couple years, correct, Ash?
Yeah.
And that time is up in 2022, I believe, 2020, early 23. So, first off, I got some pictures and stuff if you want to take them down, pass it. Kind of what we're looking at. When I gave Ash the numbers a month and a half ago, that truck you're looking at is about $350,000. In years past with the other vehicles, the 2013 pumper was paid in full by the city. In 2015, we ordered a tanker, which the fire department paid roughly $60,000 of that. Is that correct, Ash?
Yes.
Right around there, which left the city about $175,000 financed. That first 2013 pumper, the fire department did purchase quite a bit of new equipment for that, so that would be our portion of it. And then for this particular truck, the fire department would put forth $70,000 out of savings. The rest would be financed. And then you also have the sale of 2 trucks. So we're getting rid of 2 trucks with 1. So I kind of like approval to send these bids out to Alexis, Toyne, and I can't remember the other one, Pierce. So those would be the 3 places I'd send these bids. If anyone wants to look at it, it's 63 pages. Probably not something you want to
Can
look at.
you read
tonight.
it tonight?
Yeah. You guys won't be here till morning. So that's kind of where we're sitting, and we've been saving a lot for this. I know you guys probably don't want to hear it, but our boosters is 501c4, which they buy a lot of stuff for the department. So it saves a lot of money department wise.
And I think historically, since I've been there and talking to your dad, your brother, and you, that the fire department has always either bought their own stuff or shared in the expense to where the city has not had to put out %.
Yep.
And they do that through the finance of grants and fundraisers and such. So it's really taken a lot of the financial pressure off the city.
It doesn't seem like much, but in the short time I've been chief, we've received almost $5,000 in grant money. $3,500 of it is going towards a $28,000 skid unit that should be here within the next week or so. Very beneficial to rural community areas and the town as well. So I don't know. This 2013 pumper was the first one that the city did anything with. Everything before that we bought. But as you all know, the prices go up and we're unable to do it fully ourselves. This would be, so the cab chassis on that would be a 7 International like you guys see there. This is a 4-wheel drive vehicle, it'd be a crash vehicle, but also be able to so that Freightliner cab is 10 to 14 months out. So really the city wouldn't have to pay for this truck until the completion date. If we wanted to save, at the time I talked to Ash, it's about $3,000 we could pay for the chassis, and then the body would be the remaining balance there. So I guess finances are your deal, not mine.
Yes. And we're working now with the CHIP, and you'll be seeing that on the next item, on some kind of comprehensive financial plan, to accommodate the housing project. So it's good timing to include that in his comprehensive plan, if you want to proceed.
So,
I would make the motion to be able to send out specs to get bids.
Moved by Renzo, second by okay.
Don't go anywhere. I have one
Yeah,
more.
I got something for you. How do you vote? Patrick?
Yes.
Morgan? Lee?
Yes.
Renzo?
Yes,
Kavah?
go ahead.
I just, a quick question on the outside sirens, that's not intended for people inside their house, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
It's only intended for people outside of their homes to take shelter.
Yeah.
If you're inside, you're kind of, on your own to be weather
and
aware.
what's the other options? I know you can get alerts on your phone, what else?
There's a couple different things. There's the weather radios. Noah puts out a great one. A lot of times you can find them next to nothing or free. And then Bob Kemp also has a plan to where it'll come through on your phone. I mean, KCCI, any of those weather things, your phones are tracking you all the time. So.
Winter sets a perfect example. What do you need then?
In some cases, that winter set thing, bad deal, but that started clear down by Corning. So if you're weather aware, you would know that there's at least thunderstorms coming. So.
Okay, thanks, Jay.
You ready for me?
Yeah.
I just want to clarify something. It was in our packet and in your monthly report, but just so the public is aware. Last month, we were discussing on an unrelated matter, some bid procedures in regards to the storm sirens. And it was brought to the attention that when we did the storm sirens, that there was a $6,000 difference in the award of that contract. And it was left at that. There was no reasoning or anything behind for that. Can you let everybody know there was a reason behind it and what that?
If you guys have anything fire related, just like I'm probably gonna know best. Jim and Corey are officers, they're gonna know, but Ash or myself, we're gonna know financials, things going on in the department. I mean, that's my job. So on your deal, according to the grant procedures, from what I was told, those sirens had to be battery backup. There was 3 bids, only one had battery backup. So when because it got put in our lap, we recommended to go with the battery backup. That way the city didn't have to pay $37,000 instead of 43 or something like that. So that's kind of why we recommended that. We sent it on to Mike and we could get 2 sirens, pretty cheap by following the grants, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. Also with that, I know there is a yearly maintenance program to go along with those sirens. I don't have the details in front of me. I can email them to Ash. I want to say they were $425 a siren, and it covered the parts, I believe. Labor we still have to pay, but some of those parts may be pretty expensive. So that's kind of why we recommended going with them. And also, John is very good. He does all of our radio communication. So kind of another reason to go with him, even though we already had our name.
Thank you.
That's good.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you guys.
Okay, city engineer, Forrest.
All right, there's a lot under this.
Yes. So
We should
one
take your
at a
time,
time.
make sure we know.
Yeah,
Okay. So the first is the White Pole Road project update. And some of this will be a rehash for council members Caldoff and Renslow. But White Pole Road, which is Front Street, running east-west through town, the old highway, it's experienced a lot of rutting from the trucks coming through town. And I put in the council packets, hopefully you didn't see that, I brought a copy with me, but it was kind of did this, and Jim went out and a rainy day, and some of those have that. I can pass this around, but that was a presentation that we made last year about what was going on. So we had conversations with Poet, we had the ethanol plant, we had conversations with Guthrie County, and what we came to was we need to do something. So the idea was to fill in those ruts with kind of an asphalt slurry that would fill those in, level things out. It's not structural, wouldn't hold up to the trucks over time, but it's a kind of a short-term fix to get us through until the long-term fix can be figured out. We actually received quotes from a couple contractors, and the low quote was from Fort Dodge Asphalt in the amount of $118,000 in round numbers to do that slurry seal. They ran out of time because of their schedule, the weather, they didn't get to it. So we stayed with this through the winter like it is. And I talked to Fort Dodge Asphalt. They can't come in until the weather warms up. It has to be pretty warm. But they're prepared to do the work come June if we have an agreement with them to do that work in June.
Are we set in stone on this? Like, is this a binding contract that we've already agreed to? If we cancel it, we have,
no, it's not by
okay.
I don't think so, because they didn't get the work done when we
Okay.
asked them to
I
get
just
it done.
wanted to make sure I was understanding.
I didn't, excuse me, I didn't tell them we're looking to maybe not do it, but I wanted to know where they were at, so. And then you had a letter from
Yes,
from
Catholic.
Guthrie County, from the supervisor from Guthrie County, and they are looking at a permanent fix, designing that maybe this year, maybe getting the bonding going, and they're looking at a larger project of not only doing the city limits part, but further out west, and doing that 2023. I don't know if anybody's from the county.
That's what he says in his letter.
That's what he said in his letter, so. So the question really to the council, go ahead.
Just, I want to touch on how much is the participation that he told us. He will participate with $30,000.
Yes. They
Well,
would,
and-
On the short term.
on the
Yes,
slurry
sure.
seal.
And that was gonna be my question, because if I remember right, and you correct me if I'm wrong, we approved this patching based upon their agreement of 30,000.
Yes,
But in October and November, when I to prepare a short agreement for the city and for the county to sign, there was pushback from yourself and Mr. Belden And we didn't go forward with that because you guys didn't want to spend money on the attorney fees. So we talked about getting a short-term contract, for the short term, to get a contract drafted up so that everybody was set on who was doing what. And that was turned down. And then we also asked for the long-term fix to work on a 28E. And that was shot down because we didn't want to spend legal fees on Steve Brick. And if I remember right, Forrest was directed to work with Ash and Jim and Josh, the county engineer from Guthrie and the county engineer from Adair, to come up with a long-term fix and then get back to Steve when everything was hashed out. Is the way we left it, October, November-ish.
Yes,
So
and-
that's very much for the new council member to see where we at with the project, you know, and we had that unconfirmed previous commitment with the Basin County to give us $1,000 to do the short-term fix. And then they're gonna give us 50% of the long-term fix unofficially too. This was the talk that we had because
On
we
their
had a lot
side,
of sessions.
on their side of the road.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we had a Jim here to confirm that too, and Councilmember Calva was involved with this discussion too, that there was a commitment, if they're gonna go with the long-term project, that it would be 50% on the side, 50% on the city side.
But we want a 28E to confirm.
Yeah, we'll develop that down the road, but that was a commitment from the supervisors to us.
Right.
So that's what I need a new council member to know, and I think the previous council, Calva and Vince will know these things, but we're bringing you now up to date with us.
But didn't we get told prior? Because I know we came in and you said they can't do it because of the weather. So it really didn't make much sense to go forward with an agreement at that time if they weren't gonna do it, right?
Because they were set to do it in the spring, but I asked for a short contract to be drawn up by Steve Brick to confirm the numbers and that we were gonna participate this much, Adair was participating X, and Guthrie was participating with their 30,000. So that way, when the time came, we didn't have to mess around with what we're messing around with now. And that Guthrie County signed on the dotted line that they were gonna participate 30,000 when we did, and it was turned down.
From the letter I see here, if you read it, I don't think they denying that. They just want to revisit the issue of the 30,000. So they're not denying that. Or I haven't received a denial letter from them. They just want to revisit it. So now I will let Forrest continue. Now I just want this, I want to touch base on this background so everybody on the same base from the new council member. Go ahead, Forrest.
And one clarification is White Pole Road is right on the county line. So the north half is in Guthrie, the south half is in Adair. So that's part of the confusion of all of this. So makes for interesting conversations. So just so everybody is aware of that, there's sometimes some confusion thinking the railroad tracks are the
I
county
remember
line.
that, I was enlightened with that at our meeting, but
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was down the
Did
center of the
Adair
road.
County supervisors ever say they would chip in on the project?
I,
On the short term,
I think the last.
the short term, we already had a commitment, Brian went to their meeting and got a commitment from them
Brian
of,
attending the meeting, and he was telling Brian, I remember Clyde, that he will participate with 50,000 out of that wind generator participation. So, yes, yeah.
yeah, it was 50,000 from Adair, 30 from Guthrie, and then we were splitting the rest.
then the other piece of this, there's some of those drainage issues, and so I'm prepared to come get some quotes and bring those back at the next meeting if we want to move forward with those drainage areas. So the question really for the council is, move forward with the short-term fix of putting in the slurry seal, getting the drainage fixed, or do we want to wait until and see what happens with Guthrie County and their plans 2023 for, I'll call it the permanent fix? That's really the question in front of the council.
Does Jim have an opinion on this?
I don't know.
He's the one that deals with these streets every day.
I'd rather not go through another winter the way it is.
So,
And I can understand that.
and I would agree with that, because our plan was hopefully not to have gone through last winter with it, and it got pushed off
Fortunately, we didn't have much of it.
Yeah,
And Josh
that's-
came down and worked on a couple of the concerned, the really bad
Yes, they
areas
did.
down here.
They came down and did some grinding to take that pushed up edge off, and that did help.
So personally, I'd like to see us move forward with this, because the whole 2023 thing is just, we don't know. Or, you know, I mean, if we knew it was gonna happen and what numbers were, then, yeah, but, I mean, we did a lot of work just to get any kind of contribution from them to begin with. So I'd like to, personally, I'd like to see that happen first, kind of know what, you know, what we're working with.
Jim, did you have something?
Yeah, I have had a couple conversations with Josh, got the county engineer, in the last couple weeks, and he's actually mentioned that there may be another type of short-term fix that can be accomplished with the county personnel and us, as opposed to the slurry seal. But he wanted to do a little further research before he committed to anything. So probably by the end of the week, I'll talk to him again.
And these guys aren't set to come out until June, correct?
Correct.
And then where do we sit if we start looking at a permanent fix? I mean, we need to start planning financially for this. I know that I've asked about infrastructure funds. I don't know where we sit for that, the federal infrastructure funds. I mean,
Yeah,
point in case, Mr. Biden's coming to talk about it tomorrow. So, I mean,
Get a check.
they're big rural, they're focusing on rural counties and rural areas. So I think applying for these infrastructure funds, you know, I mean, it's a
Right.
shot.
I agree too, because it was more addressed towards communities and not just like counties and stuff. I don't know if you would have, you have.
We haven't received anything yet. I have Matt on the copy of the issue, you know, but we haven't really received any information to how to apply or how to get it and this stuff.
Have we talked to Region 12? Do they have any insight on any of this?
It's pretty quiet on our point too. It's
Okay.
like they're still developing the mechanism and the rules and all of
I
that.
don't want
It's
to
just
fall
not-
behind and not, but I mean, if we're still looking at 2023, 2024-ish, I mean, that gives us plenty of time to apply for these funds.
What's the ballpark number for the final fix?
Was
Do
it
you have any of
2 million?
What was it?
Yeah, I had a number.
There was a number. I thought it was
There
like
was a number.
2.7, maybe just 2.
I was looking at doing concrete, right? There, we talked about that.
I thought it was grinding it
It was
down
grinding it
and
down
then
and putting-
concrete.
And doing concrete.
Well, I think Josh is looking at maybe doing white topping, which is grinding it down and putting concrete on the top. Or the other is to grind it down and use a more rigid asphalt.
Still
There are
looking
some
at a very
numbers,
large
yeah,
number.
we're multi-million.
Yeah, I thought at one time you said like 5 to concrete it. From end to end, that's just I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's definite, but.
Yeah, just no help. I can't remember either.
It was a lot.
pretty high.
It
Yeah,
was a lot.
high.
I do
It was
remember that.
And if the county went with this, it would be designed county and it would be
And
bid
I was
through the
gonna
county.
say that, I was chill and it won't be that big of a number, you know, million and a half, if I recall right. Because they will do the design, which take a lot of money, you know, and they will put 50 and we'll put 50. So even if we go with the 5, you know, that 5 has about $1.5 million design. Am I right?
Well, you'd have
Yeah.
50% for Guthrie and 50% for Adair,
Yeah,
you know, and then half of Guthrie side, and then all of Adair side. I don't know how much of
But
Adair.
the county's incurring the engineering fees because they are paying for their engineer to do it. Josh would,
yeah, that's my
right,
assumption.
so that saves us there.
Yes.
So we're talking about $1.5 million, 2 million, if I recall the numbers.
The Adair County money comes in over time, so.
Right.
You have to bond for it.
Yeah. So that's something I work with Chip on it too, if that direction comes from the council. There's so many elements that Chip and I will be meeting later to talk about, you know. We just want to know what the council vision.
So Jim gone.
He left.
Yeah, so he mentioned somebody, Josh, had some sort of an idea for a different,
Something where the county would, with their forces and the city forces would do something.
okay.
That's the first time hearing it.
Yeah, so that's just his first time hearing it.
And he told me that, like, that he will work with the county engineer by next week to get an answer.
Do we have to make a decision tonight, or can we push this off till May to
We-
see what happens?
We can push this off until May. I guess I would like to give Fort Dodge asphalt.
I was gonna say, if they were gonna start in June.
Oh, the short term, I have no doubt, I want the short term done.
But are
The
we,
reason, first I talked about is today, the next item that we're gonna discuss is related to all these, because he's gonna do the other street project here, that every year we'll go and do some streets here with asphalt. So we just wanna get direction on that item, so we can correlate it with the next item, to kind of see, he's trying to have an idea what he's gonna do in order for them to do the design.
well,
So,
with the rising cost of everything, are they still gonna stand with that number? They are.
Yeah, and that was one thing we found out, we made sure when they told us that they weren't gonna be able to get to it, we wanted to make sure that we could keep that number. Because we knew that this was gonna, prices would go up.
Sure.
So you're just looking for, do we want to do short term or just push it off and wait for long term?
Yes, and if the short term is Josh and Jim come up with something, then that's still short term, and then I'll find that out in a week, and I tell Fort Dodge Asphalt, we're going a different route on the short term. If the council feels like we wanna just hold off another year long term, and, then we'll go that way. And Ash I'll kind of lead into the next one a little bit before we back up to this one. We're looking to the next one, I think it's an extra item, right?
It is.
Yeah, the street improvements. We're looking at doing asphalt overlay on streets all over, kind of scattered all over town. Put a map. We got that?
Yep.
Map. But this is, I'm guessing there's maybe $400,000 to $500,000 worth of street overlays here, because asphalt's up. And we'd have to, if we don't do the short term, we could take that money and do more streets here. If we do the short term, then we're doing less of these streets.
that's
So-
exactly what we're trying to do.
So I want to make sure the council understands there is a trade-off on doing the short term, and we're not able to do as many streets here because only so much money to go around. Like Ash tells me.
How many streets do we lose for $117,000?
Maybe 3 blocks kind of thing, 2-3 blocks. Because we got the drainage part of it too, so it's more like 150.
And we really need that drainage stuff done.
See, and that's just it, we got a whole, more than 3 or 4 blocks of Whitehall Road out here that's really bad, that really needs improvement.
Corey, do you have any insight on this? You're a roads guy.
I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence about the whole thing. Do we just keep our money and wait until next year and do this? Can we just bring in a milling machine and just profile it for now? I don't know, but you guys had the agreement last year. It's just unfortunate that they
Right.
didn't show up and could complete the work. I don't know
Right.
whether- But if it's something, if the county is kind of looking at maybe doing a permanent fix this time next year, how many years has it been like this? Can we
Right.
suffer through one more year? I'm kind of on the fence with it, to be honest with you.
And we could always, we wouldn't have to wait till May, we could always have a special meeting after we see what Jim and the engineer come up with.
And I'm
Sure.
okay with that
So I
too.
was,
Sure.
I'm good with that too, that would make sense, because since you brought it up, I'd like to at least hear what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm
so-
good, I'm giving him the budget, and we're trying to, A and B is trying to listen. Because I have 400,000, I can split it here, 200 here, 200 here.
Sure.
If you don't wanna do this, I'm gonna take the 200, put it here. So the money is there, I wanna know what direction you wanna go. So,
Yeah, and if there's something the county and the city can jointly do
Yeah.
that saves some of that money,
Yeah, maybe it does.
maybe,
So maybe get us by.
So Jim said at the end of the week,
he said by next week you will find out, we can always meet on a special meeting. And at the worst case scenario, if we don't hear until May, we're still okay, because we have the other company, they didn't tell us no.
So could we table A until we hear back from Jim and then have a special meeting?
Yeah.
Is that?
If we have to, we will come back, yeah.
Right.
We could do a phone call, we wouldn't have to actually be here.
I would almost like the county,
to be here.
we need to have a conversation with the county, because I don't want them, if we do that, I don't, they've already 1,000. I'd hate to say, I don't know.
I can tell you, the sense that I got the last time I talked to Mike Dixon in passing, it wasn't favorable. I didn't get a very favorable sense
I think
that they were looking more long-term than they were short-term.
I think we need to revisit with the county, in my opinion.
We need to get an answer.
Okay, so
I
we'll
think it's
table,
perfectly fine to table A, I think that's perfectly fine.
we'll table it.
And then you'll let us know when we can get together in the next week or so, 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to Jim, it all depends on the information we get.
Right.
And I will have to be honest to you, because I worked hard to get that letter from the county that you have in your.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
pulling
I'm
teeth.
seeing my,
We all know.
how I was in that process with me.
We worked hard just to get the 30,000.
Yes, so
Just that.
there might be a little bit of difficulties
Yeah.
to get anything, so, but we'll see what we can do now. Forrest is helping me out in that process too. So we'll go to B.
So B, so we're looking to do something. We don't know exactly how many streets we're doing. Before you tonight is just an engineering agreement and it's a hourly not to exceed, so it's just however we get to. And it's just to put the plans and specs and the bidding documents together to put together the asphalt overlay project. If we end up doing less, we'll do less streets. What we've always done before is we pick the worst streets, we have them be base bid, and then we have blocks and we have alternates, A, B, C kind of thing. And then we can add and subtract the alternates to fit the budget. And if we have a meeting in 2 weeks or even a month, we would have the guidance and, where we are landing and what we have for a budget and what streets. So if you're comfortable with that, we're doing something, then that would be engineering agreement to put this together.
I spoke with Forrest today. We always have a good relationship with Forrest. I'm okay with that agreement if we have it, because he usually bills us for what he needs to bill us.
Right.
It doesn't matter what kind of, what the size of the project, he will always bill us for what we need to be billed.
I think he's been working for the city,
Yes.
or with the city, not for the city, but with the city for a number of years. So
Well, as long as I remember,
I would,
29 years I've been here.
I would move to
Okay.
enter into that agreement for the
Moved by
street
Kavah,
agreements.
I'll second it.
second by Kirkpatrick. How do you vote, Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Morgan? Yes. Dolly?
Yes.
Renslow?
Yes,
Kavah?
Yes.
Okay, C, Forrest.
Okay, thank you very much, council. So the third one on the agenda is we're looking to use the COVID money. I think that's correct, right?
Yes.
The ARPA money or whatever it's
is
called.
this the American Rescue Fund?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
To use those funds to fix these manholes all over town. These are manholes that Jim went and investigated each one of these, and determined which are the worst manholes that need to be repaired. And again, we have a certain budget of, I think, a couple $100,000 for these as well, if I remember right, something.
We're gonna get 250, I think, in this one.
Less.
60, so, less than 200.
Yeah, because some of it I know you we had
Reallocate.
allocated somewhere else, but around 200,000. We do the same thing. You know, we pick the worst of the worst, and we'd have alternates for others as well, so that we can do the budget for that. And so we're looking to get this done, this work and the asphalt work done this year yet. So it'd be fall work. So that's what that second agreement, the fee is a little bit more because we actually go in here and we top each one of these, look at it, what has to find some of the top part needs to be repaired. Some of it's bringing up to grade. They're leaking like a sieve, and a lot of groundwater is coming into these, and which is causing problems at the wastewater plant when it rains. Some of these are in the same area that goes down the Harwood Road as well. So
You're talking like 200,000 extra gallon with heavy rains. Is that what, Corey, is that what Jim said?
Yeah, well, throughout the whole town.
Yeah, throughout the whole town. And so you can line it and seal them up.
yes.
Move that we enter into that agreement.
Okay. Motion by Kavah, second by Morgan. And you got Kirkpatrick,
Yes.
Morgan. Yes. Dolly. Still there?
Yes.
Okay, Renslow,
Yes.
Kavah,
Yes.
okay. D,
Okay, thank you very much, council. Okay, so D. So we've been talking, D is the next phase for the residential development. We're calling it phase 4 residential development for lack of a better name. Sometimes we need to come up with a better name, but that's what it is for now. We put for the council 3 areas, or it's all one area. Oh, thank you.
There you go. Thank you.
So it's all the same area, it's just how is it phased? So this is kind of, or this is the development that Seed has landed on for a project in the area that they landed on. There's still a lot of things that aren't figured out yet as far as, that road going on the east side of the football field. There needs to be some conversations with the school board and the property owner to the east. That road could move east or west too. And then we had 3 on how this is phased and 3 options on how it's broken out for cost. And so like option A is the base bid for what's shown there in green, including the road going down to White Pole Road. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, alternate B.
A is what color?
A, we would do if the base bid would be what's in green. For all of these, the base bid
Okay,
is
that's
green.
what I thought, but I wanted.
So this one, the base bid is in green, but it's the northwest. And then the same thing we do with the manholes in the streets, we can bid these as alternates. So we have a base bid and then we bid alternate 1 and alternate 2 and kind of see where the costs come in and where the funding is and the financing. So this is just northwest base bid, alternate in the blue, and then another alternate for the road going down the White Pole Road. We're also looping the water main. Had a good conversation with the utility. They have an 8-inch water main already to the southwest corner of the football field. We're bringing an 8-inch water main down to the southeast corner of this development. It just makes sense to loop that around. It helps the school, it helps the development, helps with fire protection, helps with water quality. So that was really, the utility staff brought that forward, so that was a really good idea. So that's included, all of these, the $700,000 in sanitary sewer repairs that are tributary to the Harlan Street Sanitary, those are all in the base bid as well. So that's in the financing for that. That's pretty much sewer repairs on the south side of town. All that goes down to Harlan Sewer. That's all included in this. And then upgrading the lift station in Wombo Phase 1 this all flows to that lift station. Upgrading that lift station is also included in the base bid for all of these. So just want to clarify that as we're looking at these, all the base bids have those things in common. So this is doing the northwest base bid, and then option C is just kind of flipping that around. Alternate, the base bid is to the northwest, and the road is the first alternate, and then the rest of the housing is third. Just if there's, I'm going to turn it over to Chip here to talk about the financing of this and how this can work with the financing. And so really tonight for the council's consideration is based off Chip's direction. You don't necessarily have to say, make a motion or anything. This is how we want to do it. If you feel comfortable as a council giving that direction, that's great. What the engineering, really the only item on the council agenda for tonight for action is the engineering agreement, and that would be designing the whole thing regardless of which way you use base bid. It's doing the whole thing, so that way, whichever alternates or base bids we do, we've got the whole thing designed. And even if we say, okay, we're going to only do the base bid, we're not going to do any of the alternates, we still need to design the whole thing, and the grading still needs to be done for everything, so we can get all the earthwork to balance out. So that's really before you. If you want more time to think about it, we could hold all of this off until the May meeting. But if our goal, right now, our goal would be to design this over the summer months, do the surveying, the plans, specifications, bidding documents. We have to get DNR permits. We need to talk to the school board, get all that done over the summer. We bid this over this winter, and then construction would start in the spring of 23. So that's kind of the schedule we're on. So we can push things down the road a little bit here if the council wants some more time, but we can't go too much with it. So I'll turn it
I
over.
personally would really like to push this back just in a month for sure, just so I'd like to sit with Chip and Ash a little bit more. I talked with Ash a little bit about this, and just to go over the numbers more and include the fire truck with some of the plans moving forward for the next couple of years here. But again, that's my personal opinion, just to move this back to May.
Well, Chip is here to make a presentation, so I'm going to turn it over to Chip.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Forrest.
Could this also be possible that when Gold can meet with Chip, we could maybe push this to the
Yeah.
special,
Yeah, that's,
just to give a couple more weeks to discuss, so that way we can keep it moving, but.
yeah, I talked to Dave today, and he would like more time, so I will sit with him and Chip and try to add all these fire truck and all these things. We can present it in the special meeting, for a special meeting, or in May.
Yes. I think it's also important to point out the costs include an estimate for the land purchase as well. So it's an all-inclusive kind of approach. So, so you have this handout in your packets, and I'll try to go over this as briefly as I can. But I think really what Forrest and I were tasked to do was, as you're looking at the alternate scopes of the project, how can this be financed? And if you do finance everything, hypothetically, what will that look budgetary wise for the city? Can the city afford it? If you do proceed with the full funding, what does that do to your city levy? Keeps it within your financial frameworks. That's reasonable. So I'll go through this just briefly, and hopefully not too much. So the first the second page, it's table labeled as Exhibit 1. This is the valuation history of the city based on the 100% assessed values. This is valuation before rollback. Once rollback is applied, that gives you your taxable valuation, and then the taxable valuation is valuation to which levies are applied. So you look, the current valuation for FY, most recent, I should say, for FY 22-23 is $128,581,000. of that number, put kind of the housing phases in perspective, roughly 15 million is the first 3 phases. So that is a for the city. So in percentage terms, that 50 is about 11.6% of the 128 million. Next page is your taxable evaluation. The base valuation to which operating levies are applied are at the left arrow. Your TIF valuation, which is used to generate tax increment dollars to pay down TIF debt, that's the second blue arrow. And then your total taxable valuation against which a debt levy is applied, that's to the right in the total taxable column. Growth is shown there over the period shown. And then, so this is history. The next slide page, number page 4, exhibit 3. This reflects the city's historic tax levies. The second column from the right, column M, is the city's total historic levy. Historically, a lot of those years, it's been $18 to $19. The city's worked very hard to get that levy down and has benefited from valuation growth. Again, a success story for the first 3 phases of the housing development. We took a little bit different approach for FY 21-22 and 22-23 in terms of how insurance costs were funded. That it does modify the net levy, and I'll get into this a little more in a minute, but that column, those numbers on the right side, that net levy, which is used to calculate TIF dollars, that levy portion related to the city is quite a bit lower because we've been bonding for insurance costs, which the benefit of that is you get to apply it toward the entire taxable valuation. So you get in more tax dollars. The drawback with that, it gives the city less TIF dollars, and I'll get into that in a minute. The next page, this is on how TIF works. So the left are the various total levies for Adair County and Guthrie County. This city's levies included there. So the column, that is column F is in Foxtrot. That's the net levy that's used to count. It's roughly $32, and on a consolidated basis, roughly $32.90 for Adair, and pretty similar for Guthrie, 32.72. So there are certain protected levies which these political subdivisions can apply against TIF, and those go to those political subdivisions. They're deducted out in column E, and then kind of the mechanics of TIF is in the top right table, table 2. It shows various valuation, increment valuation amounts. The city's increment valuation for FY 22-23 is $62.6 million. That generates just over $2 million in TIF revenue. So just an overview of TIF. The next page, exhibit 5, is looking at different approaches with the city's portion of the consolidated levy. If we do what we did for FY 22-23, that's alternate B. So that he takes the consolidated levy. This is the portion of the city can control the city's levy. It's down to $30.50. If we take a little bit different approach and don't bond for as much of the insurance costs, that is alternate A. So that takes your consolidated levy for TIF higher, which in row 19, that gives the city another $150,000 in TIF revenue per year, just comparing the 2 approaches. Over 10 years, that's $1.5 million. So when you're looking at a pretty sizable project cost for that housing project, phase 4, these numbers become very important. So you want to try to capture as much TIF as you can with this scope of the project. The next page, page 7, this is detail on the city's TIF debt. So if you skip forward a couple, if you don't mind. One more, okay, that one, 10. So the second column on page 10 is the existing debt paid by TIF. So you can see it's roughly $1.5 million, except for a couple years there toward the end of the maturity structure. So that's existing debt only. The next page, page 11, these are development agreements, including the Blight remediation program, but that's from the first 3 housing phases. And this includes the Stuart Hotel, the Stuart Herald agreements as well. Development agreements only, no bond issues here. The next page, page 12, this is the city's TIF certification for FY 22-23. The breakdown at the top of the table is bond issues only. Development agreements are detailed in the second part. So the TIF revenue is roughly, TIF debt is roughly $1.9 million or so. So should have a little bit of TIF cushion for FY 22-23, so that's good. Next page is a breakdown of what we know from actual development from phase 3. So this is new information that we don't have assessed valuations for formally from the county from a evaluation standpoint. This is just property assessments only, going through piece by piece, looking at individual properties. So already from phase 3, as of 3 months ago, there was $1.8 million in valuation. If you look at the bottom of the page, 39 lots, they're running on pace to be pretty conservatively $225,000 per lot. That's $8.7 million in assessed value, roughly $4.8 million in taxable valuation. Residential has a hefty rollback. It rolls back to about 55% of what it's assessed at. So next page is another view of how the valuation city is split out. So the valuation for operations is at the left, valuation for TIF is next, and then total. And then this part of the city's budget model shows a future forecast for just growth on existing, kind of what you might call native valuation, assuming 1.5%, very conservative. Next page is page 15. These are known. If a quick star happens, of course, and this is a conservative assessment of what their valuation would be using Casey's as a proxy. And assuming in column, that's X, phase 4 valuation. Assuming a third is built, construction takes place in the streets in calendar 23, houses begin to be built in calendar 24, and a third each year, built in 24, 25, 26. Based on what's developed so far with the first 3 phases, I think that's still a pretty conservative approach for how this would be built out. Now, how many lots in phase 4? 48, I think, if you do everything.
21 and 26, 26 in A and 21 in B.
So 47.
Yeah.
So this assumes assessments on only 26, as noted at the bottom of the table, only 26 units. So the lower, the more scaled down to be, again, very conservative. Next slide, next page, page 16. So this is a beginning review, and the city's budget models developed over at least 10-year period. There's a lot that goes into it, and this is probably from the operating budget standpoint, this is the most important page. This is very important actually. So yes.
And this exact page is the one that I'll be meeting with Chip and council member Dave Golden to kind of try to develop this page. So there is a lot of moving numbers here, a lot of issues going on here, but it's all promising. It's not gonna stop anything what we're trying to do. It's just what Chip and I and council member, Dave Gold, will be able to develop a little bit for the future of our budgeting and all this stuff. But it shouldn't really have any effect of what we're trying to accomplish with the budget. I want that seat to be comfortable and everybody this is just how our budget works and how we see the next big budget until 25, 26 fiscal year budget, how it works. So something internal between Chip, myself, and the finance council members, Dave Doty, to kind of just try to develop. It has nothing to do with what we're trying to do with the budget. So we all should be happy.
So it starts to look at, the key column is column N as in Nancy. That column is dollars to fund city operating budget requirements. So it's only those dollars generated from your operating tax levy, funding insurance, and then can't emphasize enough, I think. So the first three phases of the housing developments, those are funding Harlan Street sewer improvements fully. There's a drawback by using TIF and its impact on the city's general fund. So there is assumed, and this is laid out for you to decide as a council. We put the numbers together, you decide as a council, does this look acceptable? And I reviewed this a little bit before the meeting with Jim. But still please look at this as fluid. So to offset the impact on the city's general fund, there's assumed to be a contribution from the sewer fund. So that's factored in, is added into column N, and it keeps the operating budget similar to what it's been historically. If that needs to be higher based on other budgetary requirements, then this page has to adjust. So if there's more personnel, more staff people, more whatever operating budget expenses you might have, we'll have to tweak this page. So next page is page 17 is, so you basically how the model works, you have the total valuation breakdown, we peel off the fund operations, and then what remains funds city TIF debt obligations. The key column on this page is the right column AE. So that shows the net TIF available to pay bond issue debt service and to pay development agreement or TIF rebate agreements. So the next page, page 18, is a review of, it's kind of a recap of what Forrest laid out, options A, B, and C in terms of the project alternates and how you would bid those as alternates or base bids and so forth. And then what I did is, if you look through the overall project approaches, there's kind of three cost ranges. $3.5 million is the base bid on option B, 4.1 million. That's 26 lots plus the title road, and then 5.7 is everything. And then those three financing alternates are shown at the bottom, and then I get into those on the next pages. If you go, Mike, please, to page 20. So this shows existing debt, and the green shaded area is the proposed debt, assuming 3.5 for phase 4. And what is remaining then in net TIF dollars is proven out in column AP. So each year, there's still a positive surplus with TIF dollars. And if you, so that's very encouraging. And you can see when we get into the future out years, there's a healthy amount in those gray shaded areas. So then maybe next, if you don't mind going to page 20, this is 4.1 million. The net amount, again, is shown in column AP, the right column. Every year is positive, every year has to be positive in order to have sufficient dollars to do two things: fund city budget operations and debt service. Conservative assumptions on valuation growth and really just looking at this debt. So if there's other projects, we have to factor those in such as Whiteville Road. Then if you don't mind going to page 28. So this is the highest cost alternative. The first two scenarios are assumed to be paid off over 12 years. A pretty aggressive short payback time period. This is assumed to be 14 years. The two additional years are in the gray shading. You can call them AM. And those for FY 24 through FY 37, that the total of the, if you go through and add each of those years, just in those fiscal years, the surplus TIF in this scenario, the most costly scenario, is $9.7 million. So each of the scenarios can be funded if you have the assumption that those operating dollars are sufficient to fund your budget going forward. So that's an overview, kind of top to bottom, and really a positive thing I think this accomplishes too. It funds the Harlan Street sewer improvements with no user rate adjustments. Other positives, if you move forward in the near term, interest rates are still favorable, so you can take advantage of those rates. Keeps the momentum going from the existing first three phases. That's a positive. If you do the phase 4 sooner than later, it avoids, what's expected to be future construction inflation. So that's positive. Fits within the financial framework of the city from last year, from 2021. And it doesn't obligate you to proceed with any particular scope of the project as long as you set it up to be bid with bid and alternates. So what's a drawback? It's a big number. So it is doable for the city if your operating budget dollars stay consistent with what we've had historically. If we need to tweak those, there's S4 is working through the design process. We can revisit those budget discussions. But this is kind of groundwork for as you start to look at the budget for FY 24 that you complete next year, early next year. So happy to answer any questions you might have to.
Chip, since we have a new council, what kind of income are we talking with LMI money out of this housing so far? And what it can be used for?
There was a blight remediation program adopted last year. It helps fix up blighted homes. It helps, you have to set up a program for this, but it could be used for utility billing assistance for LMI folks. You could, let's see, I know the city has a whole list of alternates that can be used for it. I don't remember offhand. It's not the easiest thing to work with, but it has defined purposes that it can be used for. And it's just kind of beginning to come in. And it's the revenue for FY 23 is just under 100,000. And it's estimates after that because we don't really know yet what the valuation is going to be. And it's just LMI money for the first 3 phases. So
If we have an older home, we can possibly give it to a developer to fix up this home. But there's a lot of
if the ownership, if you got the ownership question worked out, yes, yeah, you bet.
So I don't have any questions, but just to start discussion with everyone, while Dave wants to look over the numbers, which is fine with me, this is kind of just where I sit after reviewing everything. I would like to move forward with 4A, which is the first 6 lots, and bid 4B in the road as alternatives or alternates. So just to see where we come in. But
So I like that approach, and just to discuss the road part.
and that's not a motion, it was just a
Right.
talking point.
And just for the road part, I like the 4A as the base with the curve, the green curve. 4B, and then leave the road up until we know an answer because we're working with a school property owner and we're not sure, and then don't bid that until we know we got agreeable
You
parties.
can get alternate bids and
On
still
that.
be okay, but, and 4A to include the sewer also.
Oh, yeah, all base bids
I
would
think
include
all-
the 700,000.
Okay, they all,
They
okay.
all do, yep.
So, and I think you answered my question, because I was gonna ask you about interest rates. I know we got favorable interest rates, and even if we wait a little bit, you can lose out on those. If we get stuff
You can.
going, you know, and get the financing going, then we can kind of lock those in
You can.
on that, you know. So just in your discussion there, I like what you had, you know, before we like to see it. Go ahead, secure the funding, enter into that agreement with Forest, so we can get all this surveyed, and then also urban renewal.
Oh, amend the
We have to
plan.
amend the urban renewal.
You bet.
So that's what I'd like. I'd make a motion just to do that, so. Otherwise, you know, those 700,000 in sewer repairs, you know, you're gonna possibly look at jacking up the rates on people here in town. I know Wambolt's paid for a lot of sewer repairs already and helped us keep those the tax system down in the
Right.
city.
That's right.
And I would hate to see the momentum get lost in that too. You know, just keep it going and see where it is, you know.
Corey, you have something?
Yeah, just put in your minds, if you do any houses out there, I think you really should do that road, because you only have one way in out there right now.
Right, no, and I would like to see that bid isn't
Because I'm saying, you kind of need
Alternate.
another exit out there
to keep that in there,
if you put any more houses in.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good alternate to have, you know, and, because we don't know if we got agreeable parties right now,
Well, if you can't do that road, I don't think I'd do any more houses yet.
so.
James, Corey, you guys have thoughts?
Warren, you have
I
something?
just real quickly, I'll use the famous attorney phrase, time's of the essence. Like Mike says, I think the faster we proceed with this, the better. We're gonna run out of homes in phase 3
Yeah, sure.
before spring starts, yeah. And as I understand it, Forrest is just asking for authorization to do the engineering, so I would, if it were me, I would tell them to start tomorrow, not wait 2 weeks until they go ahead and get going. And like Christina brought up, there may be build back better money available, and that's only gonna be available if you got shovel-ready projects, so I would, you know, by all means, look at the numbers and come back and revisit them in 2 weeks. And I'd be glad to have Councilman Doley or any of you visit our seat meetings. We welcome input from the city, so we'd love to discuss it with you as well. Lay any concerns or take your input.
Right, and that's just my concern, you know, is, you know, we are getting low on lots out there. The sooner you get started, you know, and if you brought out something that I didn't even consider, if you're gonna get that money and if you have to have shovel-ready stuff, why, you know, I know it's a big number, but it has been, you know, in this model, it's been proven out, you know.
But it has.
I know Chip has done a lot of work on this budget model on his own time for us, and I don't see the need to wait to get it started. You know, I'd hate to miss out on some interest rate. Yeah. So, did you get my motion? I did make a motion.
Say it again, so.
Motion is to go ahead and enter into the agreement with Forest. Have Chip get started on the funding and amend our urban renewal.
Okay.
On that. That way, we're not doing it piecemeal, it's all gets done in one shot. Out over a month after month.
Did Corey or James have any thoughts on what ideas we were kicking around here?
Jim was talking to
James,
me.
I meant James, sorry.
James,
Those two down there.
We already got a motion going.
Well,
But
nobody
you
seconded
discuss
it.
it though.
I think that's fine, it's his motion.
Okay. Okay, so do we have a second?
Yeah. So.
Motion,
Mike,
your second. Okay, so how do you vote? Kirkpatrick,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Dolly? Still there, Dave?
Is he still with us?
Dave,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Renzo,
Yes.
Kaba?
Yes.
May I offer just one other item?
Yeah, sure.
So I think I'd like to lock rates in this week, but with the bidding environment, I don't think you would want to proceed with the financing until you have construction bids in hand.
Okay.
So
Okay, I don't
Unless you
mind
wanted
allow
to-
us to.
unless you wanted to add a
discuss with
contingent-
Dave Dolly. He's concerned.
unless you wanted to add a pretty healthy contingency to the financing, and then it's still subject to, so if you do the bond issue, let's say next month hypothetically in June, you size the bond issue at that point in time, construction bids are in late 2022, for example, your bond issue's already been sized. So you can add a lot of contingency to it, and fund that. And if you don't need the money, you can use it for other street projects. But there's a balancing act there, I think we want to just consider. So it's entirely the council's decision. So,
That's something for us to consider right now.
yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chip.
Yes. Yep, me too. 5-minute break.
Right.
We need a measure, this evening.
Somewhere in here.
Yes.
Football field, high school's right here. Second northeast up.
Chip's not leaving, is he?
That's like whole room.
You're not, no, you don't have to come up here, but you're not leaving right yet.
No. I'll leave it for a couple more items.
Yeah, I'm,
Yes.
I'll bring it up. Just make sure you're there.
You're welcome.
So
That's what I'm doing. I help you with it. Everything I do is. That's why I did.
yes.
Make sure it's butter and salt.
I can't read your stuff.
Yeah.
What?
He's driving now. Nick just gave that to me.
Why?
These final coaching. They'll never be able to get it.
I don't know if there's enough for
Why do we not get this last Friday? I hate this last Friday stuff. This is ridiculous.
Full-time job, you need one.
They signed, this is signed before approval? The contractor signed it before approval? And the committee? That's right, we can talk about it.
Yeah, that's, yeah, I don't know, I just.
Start on where, numbers.
Dick, before we get started, can we also make sure that Chip and Ash are working to add the fire truck in on this funding?
Yeah.
We talked about it earlier, but
Yes.
we needed to make sure we noted that.
Okay, 7, resolution number 2260, a stop sign down there on Cobble, so we have to have a resolution and Jim's
Motion.
move. McCall,
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Patrick, how do you vote? Patrick,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Dolly,
He's gone.
oh, he's gone
He's
now.
driving.
Okay. Reslow,
Yes.
Kaba,
Yes.
a Midwest Partnership contribution, you normally give this amount.
This is the annual contribution we give to the Midwest Partnership.
Okay, you can talk?
I was just gonna.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll just make the motion that we make the same contribution as we did.
Okay, moved by Rensselaer.
Can I just say,
Yeah.
maybe for our newest member, I think James, we just kind of explain what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Johnson. I'm Executive Director of Midwest Partnership Economic Development. It's basically a nonprofit organization centered on economic development for 8 area government counties, making the membership renewal request for the city of Stuart for this year. It's should be the same as last year. I don't think that changes at all, but I work pretty closely with Matt on a regular basis and Seed, and we do all sorts of stuff. If you haven't, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you for the good work, and we have a motion to approve that, 1648. We've been doing that for years, and it's seconded by Council.
Second, moved and seconded, okay, how do you vote then? Kirkpatrick,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Rensselaer,
Yes.
Kaba.
Yes.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to mention though that Peter's been a great colleague to work with. We've worked together on a few items. And so I just really appreciate working with him. So he's been a great asset to the county and to the city as well.
Okay.
Remember to add, it's a great investment. They just got a grant for internships. And some of the interns are gonna be working, high school interns here in Stuart. And Karen added up real quick, and just what the grant is gonna pay the interns here in Stuart is $8,000. So you're getting 5 times your investment back just on that grant.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Warren. Okay, 9, code enforcement agreement,
Yeah, we have, a agreement with,
we'll let Jason talk
you want
to.
to talk, yes, yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jason Gonzalez with Iowa Code Enforcement. We come to you tonight requesting to have the fees increased from $500 to $1,000 a month to better enable us to do a better job for the city of Stuart.
Well, I was gonna say, I talked to the mayor, and the mayor and I kind of recommending that you take it phases. We'll go from 500 to 750, then from 750 to 1,000. Just have a little bit of a request that the agreement indicating that we supposed to have picture for the nuisance. We're supposed to have phone numbers, people on that nuisance, so people can call Max. And if we have a hearing, we just would like to see you or Max attend instead of the mayor and myself trying to answer.
Okay.
So we'll start with recommending to the council to increase it to 750 from 500.
Can I say
And then-
something
Go ahead.
when you're done?
And then in the next few months, we can revisit it again, once we see what the request from the mayor and what the agreement exactly indicated.
And
We thank you for the good work.
And I work closely with Nadine, and she says this is just a tip of the iceberg. And she says, you know, a lot of stuff's not getting done because by the money.
I agree.
Yeah, and we just want to take it
I
phases,
just
get
added-
it all adjusted.
4 more today, I believe.
There's a lot of good enforcement to be
Complaints I
done
had
now.
over the weekend. And so, the deck is usually you guys, right? The Redfield, and he said, yes, give up 40 notices, I said, that one might be on your phone. He said they need it.
There's a lot of work to be done.
So, and I don't want to make anybody mad or step on anybody's toes, but just from observation over the last couple of years, can you tell me how much of Max's time is devoted to code enforcement and how much time is answering questions from the mayor or talking with the mayor?
I would very seldom talk to him.
It is, it's a tricky balance. I mean, that's.
That's why I said I don't want to make anybody angry. I'm just curious because the only reason why I say this is I know that you worked very closely with Beverly Hills. Also, just by looking at bills, we had constant call from mayor, call from mayor, call from mayor. So I'm just curious to see how much of the time are we losing to multiple phone calls
There is time.
versus
There definitely
actual
is
code?
time. And we would love to see more time dedicated to true code enforcement. There's no doubt about it. Sticking to, when there's a list or a post-it note, giving that to the city hall to Sarah, and then she puts that on Google Sheets. Max gets that in real time, reports it back in real time. I hear what you're saying, Ash, about reporting back with pictures. No doubt about that. Yep. By design, that phone number is not out there in the world. When I give, resident A a listing of things to be taken care of, when they can easily just call and refute and talk, that takes away from that time that we're talking about. So by design, we don't want to make that, let's talk for an hour about how you're going to pick up 17 piles of trash in your yard. We don't want that. The city doesn't want that. And so making it a little difficult for them to do that, we would more like for them to spend their time picking up and cleaning up and improving their properties rather than talking with code enforcement about that.
Can we get the city hall number maybe on there and maybe they can call and give you guys a message or something?
Absolutely.
And I don't have a problem with them calling and talking. It's
I completely agree. Do you agree with that?
I'm okay with that because it's gonna end up going to you in a way, but whatever makes it easy on you.
It's just,
Well,
it's a
I'm
small
gonna
buffer
Yeah.
to
We just
maybe
wanna make
minimize
sure-
the time that we're using for you versus.
Yes, we just wanna make it easy on everybody. Having a picture makes a big difference because we were sitting here listening to people that, to be honest, you don't know what to tell.
Yeah.
We don't even know what the violation is.
Duly noted.
We just would like you to, I think, Max, just to be able to answer because it would be hard for me and the mayor to answer that. And it's in actually the agreement when we read it. So we just want to improve that. We don't say you're doing a good job, everything's going fine.
Good.
On a personal level, happy with you, Jason, for all the years we've been working together. It's not just this year or last year, we've been working together for a lot of years. Max is doing a good job. We just want to improve it a little bit. So the mayor and I said, we'll have it just in a scale of, we'll go from 500 to 750, and then 2-3 months we'll visit and see if things start to really go the way we want it, we'll go to the south.
Sounds good.
Would you be good with that? If the council is okay with that?
I have a question. So, and please forgive me because I've been working on the bathroom, so. I'm a little. This is the original proposal?
Yes.
Okay, did we get this? I don't remember seeing this until just now.
I thought we did.
If we did, we did. I mean, I just.
Pretty sure we did when we approved.
Yeah, we have signed it,
Okay, I just wanted this, and all we're doing, we're not changing anything in here except for right now, just to go up to 750 for how many months? What are we doing?
2-3 months to see if the situation will improve, if that was.
Are you okay with that, Jason, going to 750 for 3 months and then revisiting to see where we're at
If that
time-wise?
makes the council happy, I mean, obviously, we'd like to do more work and get things.
Right.
Honestly, it seems like we're just trying to get our wheels going and then we stop.
Right.
And that's where we feel is the thing, but I understand what you're saying. Ash.
But the pictures is a big thing, and just like you text me, another police officer text me, I had 4 texts for one property.
And he's still there.
No, he's gone today.
And-
Anyway, that's what I said, a lot of people said, Nadine said, well, don't we need a written complaint? I said, I get the phone calls. I had 4 just yesterday around town. I passed it on Nadine, said, no, I'm not gonna have a personal written from a police officer. I'm following through with this. And then when we used to have Ed Leadham, a guy, Jason is where a guy was jumping up and down, raising his paper. I didn't know he got a citation or notice. And I said, you gotta stop and let me read the paper. And he did, well, he put a fence around his property to hide his junk. Problem solved, but I'm one of the main contacts. Yes, I keep in contact with Jason and Max, but I have to.
When are we wanting to start this?
Immediately.
Immediately, we make a motion. And then we'll revisit it in 3 months and see if these little issues being worked out, we can go with that.
And we had a meeting with Max and Jason, myself. Were you there? Matt,
I arrived late,
We,
yeah.
you know, one time they talked about power washing siding. I said, at this point, we've got tires and unregistered cars and this, that, and junk. Just concentrate on that first.
Yeah, I
Then
would
if we
like to
have
see
go on
that
way.
first.
That's what Max is working on right now.
And we're making sure they're aware if we have issues like the pictures, we're telling them right away that we're having these. We're not waiting a couple months to let them know.
No, immediately.
Okay, I just want to make sure that if we
Yeah,
have
let it go
concerns
down.
that we're relating them or we're relating them to you.
So we'll add the phone number that we're talking about and then pictures for every single citation.
Yeah, Max had had the wrong email.
Just to have a hearing, you will.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
That would be awesome.
And that's, I worked with Ed Leadham a lot of years, and very seldom we had people come in here. And the council give them an extension, whatever, but overall, been a good success over the years.
Do we have a complaint form that
Yes.
somebody can
Yes.
fill out online
Yes. We
for
have it
people?
online.
Okay,
You can even fill it out online.
okay, that's fine.
But part of the problem is, a lot of people don't
No, I
want
know,
to be
but I
up
just-
front. They don't want the name there, complain about a name.
Well, forward if they want something else.
Okay, so,
Well,
I'll make that motion.
okay, thank you. Okay, motion by Renzo, a second.
I'll second it.
Second by Kirkpatrick. How do you vote? Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Renslow?
Yes,
Kavah?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you,
Jason.
Thank you so much.
Okay, 10, Iowa DOT application agreement, right away.
Yeah, that's just on the highway and utility and city. Okay, just need a motion. We've asked for the utility and the city.
So-
Jim
What, just kind of, what's it for? To do what?
and-
Yeah, I think they're running fiber along the interstate for cameras or something.
Oh, and we just gotta be okay with it?
Basically,
That's all it is.
Yeah. That's very to us.
Okay, moved by Morgan,
I'll second it.
second by Kirkpatrick. How do you vote? Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Renslow?
yes.
Kavah?
Yes.
11, Economic Development Director, Matt?
Okay. First one here is the Safe Routes to School Federal Aid Agreement. Troy Schroeder of the Iowa DOT is requesting federal aid agreement document to present to the city council. I need a motion by the city council indicating the council collectively approves the Safe Routes to School project in its entirety and authorizes mayor and city order to proceed with the project and receive federal aid. According to Chris Whitaker of Region 12 Council of Governments, who was assisting with the grant, stated this is a standard Iowa DOT agreement.
These whole things been approved in the past, we just need a motion to continue. Moved by Kavah.
I'll second
Second by Kirkpatrick. How do you vote? Kirkpatrick?
it. Yes.
Morgan? Renslow?
Yes,
Kavah?
Yes.
Okay, now next one, Matt?
Hotel Stuart, TIF development agreement, you know, that was, you guys approved the development agreement last month. So I called, Matt Alst and informed him that these documents were ready. He had been sent a copy and through email, and he's contesting the agreement. He's refusing to sign the TIF minimum assessment and development agreement as he thinks the property tax and minimum assessment agreement amount should be lowered. Second, we had an issue with the ownership of property, use of project company's annual report section of the development agreement. He didn't think it was clear enough. And third, Matt Oust had a discrepancy with the time deadline It was an issue. In a later email, he said that that may not be an issue. And then Thursday, I received an email from Matt House stating that he met with his attorney, and the attorney asked if he should reach out to me or our city attorney directly. I responded that he could reach out to the attorney, John Danos, but please be aware in the agreement that he is responsible for the legal fees associated with the TIF agreement. There is potential for escalating fees if this gets into back and forth amongst lawyers. That was sort of my response to Matt House, as he was asking, because he's asking, okay, I'm sorry, that was my response to him as he's asking for changes to documents that have gone through a bureaucratic process.
So his minimum assessment on the hotel was it 3.5? And how much money is he getting for free?
Well, the $100,000 TIF.
And then he
But it's locked
also
in, it's grouped with a $100,000
catalyst grant. So he's getting 200,000 and pretty much free money.
Yes.
And he knew all this going forward. He knew what the development agreement looked like going forward. I mean, he had the development agreement when he came up here and talked to us. I mean, I remember seeing this way back when. So he knew all of this, and now he's raising concerns.
Yes.
So we have asked him to contact our bond attorney, and we have indicated to him that there will be a cost associated with that, and he's gonna pay.
Well, that was in the agreement. I mean, he agreed to all of this,
Yes,
and now he's backing out. And I am not, I mean, for me personally, I'm not okay with adjusting timeframes. We've waited long enough for this building to get moving.
That's good indication, because I think what Ben and I has been trying to do for the last 2-3 months is we actually really trying to make it work.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
it's taking too much time
Yes.
from Matt. It's taking too much time from you. He's dragging his feet. We've been doing this for over a year.
so we will continue doing the same thing with him until May meeting. Hopefully by then, we will come to some sort of.
I definitely think it's appropriate that he's working with our bond attorney.
Yes,
Because,
that's
you
the
know,
direction.
let them handle all that, so.
Yeah, we just wanted to tell him that there will be cost. The agreement say he pays.
Right.
We don't want it to be so flat. So we will wait until May meeting, and Matt will be coming back here. Matt has put a lot of time
Too much time.
dealing with that stuff, and I feel bad that him and I going through that, but it's not the best benefit of the city, if we can get that deal to work out. So we'll report back. Matt will
Did he give
report
an
back.
indication on what he's wanting the minimum assessment to come down to, out of curiosity?
He thinks the original assessment should be lowered to what he bought the building at 140.
I'm sorry, 140?
Yeah, 140, and then he was asking for $100,000 TIF, so that would go on top of his assessment, but his current assessment is 225.
And there was a minimum assessment when he bought the property last year.
It
It's,
states
higher
in the,
minimum.
it's a difficult.
it states in the county,
Two hundred
It is really
$270,000, clearly visible on the assessor's website.
Wow, okay.
We'll get back to you. We'll get back to you in May.
and then I'm gonna go over a few items. I'm not gonna go over the full report. I'm just gonna touch on a couple items here. Andy Forrest. See, Tuesday, Andy stated he was still on schedule with the appraiser for the Kading building. He was hoping to purchase. I asked Andy if he had a backup plan if he is unable to go through with the purchase of the Kading property. He replied no at that time. I asked him to consider backup plans as he will need to be in a proper building at the end of the 6-month timeline that the city council has given him. Thursday, March 31st, we met again, and stating again that he still had a meeting with Clint, Rally Appraisal, for Thursday, April 7th, and he was hoping to have a meeting with me today with some exciting news. Unfortunately, he came in today responding that the appraiser had canceled his appointment. And so I asked him for his appraiser's name and number. I confirmed with the appraiser. The appraiser is the one that canceled it on it, but they do have a new appointment scheduled for this coming Thursday.
So he's moving forward as he had hoped.
He's doing something.
Doing something, yeah. So then I do have a update Burger King. City Hall staff and I performed a search of the ownership of the Burger King restaurant. I received a return phone call later on in the day from Skylar Moyer with Realty Income, and he stated that Realty Income intends to hold the property. They are still collecting rent, and they are going to sit on it. If someone is interested in entering a sublease agreement and operating the restaurant, that would have to be an agreement made with Burger King and the franchise owner. The current lease is $9,000 per month and has 4 years remaining.
They're not moving.
Real estate broker associated with the property contacted me and verified the information I received, and wanted to know if we had any prospective individuals that were desiring to sublease the property, and if so, they can contact me and I'll get them in touch with the broker.
So it's gonna sit there for 4 years.
So,
Yep, that's a lot of money.
You might,
And it's guaranteed income, so
you might
they're not
reach out to
moving.
Luis, maybe that's way above what he wants, but he originally was interested. I don't know if that was the sublease.
and then also I'd like to announce that we have Brenda Dudley and I are hosting, along with Jamie David of Small Business Development Group. We're going to conduct a women's entrepreneurial event 28th. So any women desiring to be entrepreneurs, if you'd like to attend the meeting, it'll be at the All Saints Cultural Center. So something that we've been working on as well. Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, Cemetery Committee, Mick Askren.
Okay, if I sit here,
Yeah,
you need.
no,
We need
fine.
to hear it. I mean, he presented his
I
contract.
gave everybody a copy of the contractual procedures, which were approved by the council back in February. Back in February. So this is just a signed copy, and I have the original copy to give to Andy right here. So I don't think it needs, everything's already been done. It's already been approved and everything.
I have some comments, Mayor.
Has this been through our lawyer?
It has not, and this was bidding specs. This was not a contract that we approved. We approved bidding specs, not a contract. And if you
It's
remember,
the same thing that Jim.
Mayor,
it's the
I am
same-
speaking. I am speaking and he cannot interrupt. We approved this as bidding specs. Remember this? In January, I asked for bidding specs and a contract to be drafted by an attorney to prepare for this, so we weren't waiting last minute. And the cemetery committee wanted to speak, and they wanted to come up with building specs that were agreeable for everybody. And this is what they presented, was the building specs. Yes.
But
So this was approved as specs, not as a contract. Last year, Mr. Kalbach presented that the committee cannot enter into any contracts without approval of the council. So why they're entering into what they think is a contract is against what you were just saying months ago. But this is supposed to go through the attorney, not to be signed already.
I do remember we were looking at having this go through the attorney. So that would have been the council's mishap not having sent this to.
But this is building specs. This isn't a contract that was
But
approved by
that's
the
what I mean.
council.
I mean, we had talked about sending and getting a contract and we never did.
does the Perry lawyer have this? I mean,
No, we
No.
just got this.
We got
okay.
it tonight, which is
It's gotta be sent to the
Which is
lawyer.
bogus
If you want
because
to.
you're supposed to have this stuff to City Hall by Friday, instead of waiting till last minute like they've continuously done. Furthermore, we now have a memo from our attorney on bidding procedures as it relates to this, and the cemetery committee gave a recommendation that could lead to legal problems. And
Actually,
according to that memo, I'm still speaking,
you're-
according to that memo, the recommendation was to be put out by the city administrator to get 2 bids, to then make a recommendation to the council for us to vote on, according to that memo. And the memo also states that it's supposed to go to the lowest responsible bidder unless there is a valid reason why not to accept that lowest bid, per that memo. Pretty black and white.
Can I say something now?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so that memo references Iowa Code 26, talks about vertical and horizontal projects. And according to the Iowa League of Cities, that is for construction. Has nothing to do with the procurement of services. There's nothing in the Iowa Code about the procurement of services. In fact, we procured services tonight from a engineering company without receiving bids. So at this point, what would really benefit us is to have our city attorney draw up a procurement process policy for us to look at, because we're just all over the board here with doing this stuff. And unfortunately, you know, that I get where that comes from in the code. You know, I agree with what he's got there in the code, but it's not for the procurement of services.
Well, then we need to have them look at something, because that's not what I understand from this memo.
Right.
This memo says on page 6, informal bidding for 6,000, which is on a yearly basis what it was. The guy was 31.5, lowest bid was 26.5. That all potential contracts may be awarded by means of informal competitive bidding procedures. The city should, practical, obtain a minimum of 2 prospective bidders. Once obtained, the city should review the bids and award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder as defined in this memorandum. Once the lowest responsible bid is selected, the city administrator may request a vote to confirm the lowest responsible bidder and award the contract. Page 6 of 6.
And the memorandum, again, references this as Iowa Code 26, which is for construction projects.
Part of it, but there's other pieces of it.
Code, okay, he would have to point out something that's the procurement of services.
Well, then he needs to refine his memo,
different.
because that's what it says.
It's different. Now, you know, this is based off of, I know, who asked for this memorandum or this research to be done?
And then, committee, I received phone calls this month because members of the committee have been extremely rude to City Hall employees. Plus, they're demanding something to be done with North Oak Cemetery and spending money, which we don't have because we awarded almost the whole cemetery budget. So we don't have money to spend on extra contractors to clean that up. But Jim and Corey couldn't get out to the cemetery because the ground was too wet and they didn't want to tear it up. But people received multiple phone calls demanding that we get something done out there, which we were working on, but that's not okay for people to be treated like that. Furthermore, your cemetery committee that you just had, Jim Henderson was informed of that meeting. And I thought we sat up here and discussed that even though he was not on your committee, he is to be at your meetings, so he knows what's going on. So why he wasn't informed is beneath me.
Well, why don't you ask Nadine, because Nadine
It's
was
not
informed.
Nadine's job to
It
notify
was,
him.
Nadine was informed, excuse me, I'm talking now.
Nadine is not to inform him. You guys are to inform him
First
when
of
those
all,
meetings are.
first of all, they can come to the meetings if they want to. It's not something that
How are
they
they
have
supposed
to
to
come
know
to.
if you don't inform our public works
Go read
director?
The League of Iowa Cities, go read what it says there.
I don't
And
need
then
to
come
read it.
back and tell me what you got to say.
But we said, did we not, that Jim Henderson was to be included, and you guys have excluded him.
I
Which
thought,
is
Nobody's
not
excluded
okay.
anybody. We had a meeting.
You did
can
not
we just have
contact him.
a quick right now.
Okay.
It's not something to get so bent out of shape over. Jim was not informed. I agree. He needs to be informed. Whether it's directly from the committee or from Nadine, whoever, you know. I don't know. I don't know if we decided on who needs to inform him, which is really shouldn't be our purview.
But given the prior meetings,
Okay,
Mr.
I
Johnson
thought
informed
I
him.
was speaking here, so, I just think we just need to calm down. I don't know what happened, with the information on that. I don't know what happened with City Hall. I haven't heard anything about that. Definitely, if people are calling up and demanding, I would agree with you, that is not the right way to handle it. There should be a process, a calm one, and as Ashley says, it needs to try to be work together to make this. This should not be, excuse the phrase, a pissing contest between anybody. Okay, should be for the betterment of the community, beautification and maintenance of the cemetery, and that should be the first and foremost contract from the term. Okay, why that didn't happen, I don't know. I blame the council that we dropped the ball on sending this contract written out by an attorney or approved by an attorney.
But you sat there 4 months ago complaining that the cemetery committee, Jim Henderson and supposedly myself, entered into a spraying contract without council approval, and yet it happened again, and you're just sitting there acting like nothing wrong.
I didn't
I don't
say nothing's
understand,
wrong.
I don't
didn't say
understand how
nothing's wrong.
that works.
I didn't say nothing. We hired.
Jumped all over Jim and I for the same exact thing.
We approved this guy. We, as council, approved their recommendation to hire this guy, okay? We approved that,
We
right?
approved it, but not to enter into a contract until it was presented. I don't see how 4 months ago, when you're complaining that Jim and I entered into something and you're screaming at us and disbanding stuff and doing all this, and how this is not the same thing.
And you know that.
This
I
is
didn't do any of that.
continuous drama from the cemetery.
This is not
Again, for the
continuous
fourth month
drama from
in a row.
anybody but you sitting on that thing and screaming at people. Now, if you want
Just
to
like
handle
you
this,
did 4 months ago. I'm done. I'm just saying, my point
The
being
council-
is you cannot enter into a contract without council approval,
we approved this guy to mow, that's,
but not the contract. We
So-
didn't have the contract to approve. We approved to accept his bid, not to enter in a contract.
Let's find a solution. I'm ready for that. I think we're a few days out from mowing. And let's let our city attorney look at this.
That's
You
good.
can go from there.
That's good.
You
Okay,
know,
we'll just take this to secretary.
Do
and
the
see.
special.
Looks at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Ash.
thank you, Corey.
We're trying to get it done.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Nick.
Who's good?
He asked, should the attorney be here when we discuss this?
Well, he can be on the phone if that saves costs.
Yeah, we will discuss
Yeah,
that.
that would just clarity.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
I mean,
scan it
Mitch
to
doesn't
tomorrow.
Mitch doesn't live that far from here that it wouldn't take him.
Yeah, he's always available if we need him.
Sure.
Okay.
Can we make sure that it's known that we're gonna incur that cost for him to be here physically to discuss?
We gotta move on.
Or on the phone, whichever,
Right,
but just so he's
Chairman is
available.
available for them, yeah. We'll scan it to him tomorrow and get his legal opinion and give it to the council and we can sign. All right, thanks, good.
Any discussion on that one?
Yep.
Okay, 13, Bob Cook, you wanna talk about town cleanup?
Well, I think you gotta talk about, you and Ash gotta bring out what you got for finance.
Okay, what we got for finance, I got a question for Corey while you're here. You're talking $200 per dumpster.
Yep.
Right? And you're talking 3 15-yard dumpsters for metal.
Yep.
And you're charging for those.
Yes,
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify that before I pass this out to the council.
but any metal that is turned in will get credited back to,
Back to us.
All of it, not just a part of it, correct?
yeah, all the metal.
Okay,
Because I-
and that, so we'll have Bob talk, but we've got bids from Marty Dairy, which he's done this 3 years for us, and he does a lot of other towns.
this come from?
I just had that. I had to clarify with Corey.
Is that the same as this?
Yeah, but I wanted to see if he's charging for the metal. I didn't know for the metal dumpsters. But anyway, Marty Derry has done the cleanup for us for 3 years, and he does a lot of other towns. He's done numerous code enforcement. But his bid is, he's got 5 40-yard dumpsters for garbage, $425 per dumpster. That's $21.25. 3 free to the city dumpsters, which is I'm going by what last year's. 2 30-yard, 115, so that's 75 yards he has. Plus, the city received money for the metal of $425. The $425 was deducted from the $21.25, making the total cost $1,700.
Do we
And I'll
do we get a statement from him?
Yeah, I got it
No.
right here.
And I'll go
Let
from
me
there.
finish. For the metal, do we know
Yes.
what he's getting for the whole entire cost of the metal?
Yeah.
Are we only getting $425 because,
No.
Or-
You're off on $425 is what he's charging for the garbage dumpsters.
no, it says $425 was deducted because that was the amount of
Oh,
money
yeah.
we received for metal.
For metal.
So are we getting an itemized receipt so we know that we're getting all the money back from the metal? Or is he just giving us $425 and keeping a chunk of it? I mean, that's what I'm trying
Like
to
if
figure out.
if he's getting 800, he's only
And he's
getting-
only
No,
crediting
he-
us because he's
he
giving us
weighs it.
free,
He has it.
supposedly. I mean, it's not really free.
Can I
because-
clarify a little bit, please?
Yes.
Okay, we did 5 40s, and I first want to say, this is an entire volunteer effort. And I hope most of the energy from the council is figuring out if any of you can come help. You've been there before. I was there in 2018 when it was 100 degrees temperature for both days, the whole day. We had a guy 10 years older than I was here both days last year volunteering. So this is a volunteer effort that was started in 2018 after a 14-year lapse. I want to get the focus on the volunteer effort and who's doing it, how's this happened, as opposed to where any small amount of money. Because folks, the amount of money we're talking is less than 15. What you approved a few weeks ago on a mowing deal was 15 times larger. 15
I wanna know how
times
much you got for the
Can I-
entire metal.
Can we
amount.
listen? Can we listen?
He's handing me something here.
Okay, but Bob's talking, he can hand it to me, I don't need to.
Trying to get a little history.
Trying to
I
listen.
hope there's been no lobbying saying, I want to be on this. If you get in lobbying, I hope it's people saying, how can I help? How can I make this successful? Because it is successful. I hope it continues. Maybe someday the town will be so clean, it'll be every other year. That'd be wonderful. It's not that clean yet. But the figures Dick's gone over, and Corey, I had nothing against your business, but I'm here, I don't want egg on my face. We've worked with 40-yard dumpsters, and we've had no problem with a lag or having capacity. And that's the most critical thing to me. The bid that we've seen won't save us any money, I'll guarantee it. 5 40s is 200 yards. If Corey does those, I don't know how many 30s you have, Corey.
0.
I've got 25, or 20s and 25s.
If I did
Okay,
the
so-
math, it's 220 yards. No, we're just.
Okay. To do 5 40s is 200 yards of pure trash. How many dumpsters will that take times 200?
10 20s.
Okay, that's 2,000. That's beyond where we were. That's $200 over what we were the same amount net after all that. And that's not including if we have to have 3 metal dumpsters. So,
Okay, so that-
and where we got Marty Derry donated the metal dumpsters. I don't know if we got 100% of the metal back, Christine. I know our net result was less than $800, $1,800. We didn't have a lag. We had big 40-yard capacity dumpsters. So our volunteer crews had space for the continual stream of people coming. There's a very strong history of success with this. Marty's done a good job, and those large dumpsters are critical because you only have so many opportunities to dump at the dump site while this is going on. We hope we get a lot of it done Friday because the dumps, the waste site, whatever, landfill,
whatever, it closes at noon, I believe, on Saturday. So you gotta have the capacity to get down there and to carry on in the afternoon until we're done. I just strongly feel we will be successful if we have those large dumpsters. I don't know as though there would be time to take a bunch of them small ones. And I don't wanna run out of, certainly don't run out of capacity. We advertise this, people expecting it. 2018, 2019 were great. Last year was even better because Molly, head of the FFA, and those kids got involved. She took a huge load of appliances out of this community at her own expense. Now I'm gonna have a tip jar for her, and I'm gonna start the money in it to help cover her fuel costs so she can do the same thing. So I'm asking, Dick and I visit, we feel it's necessary to get these large containers. It's a small amount of money. There was a 4-0 vote for much more money with a much larger difference for a different vendor than in town a few weeks ago. I don't want to get these competing for money on a volunteer effort to end up with bad feelings. I want the thing to work. And that's the most critical thing for me. So I'm asking that we stay with that.
Can I throw some numbers out just real quick before you start?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I did a lot of figuring before because I was trying to figure out where we were at money-wise on both. And one thing I will point out, though Corey's dumpsters are smaller in size, they're lower also. So it's gonna help the volunteers getting the truck, no, just let me finish.
No, please let me know. Are you already figured out where you're at? Before we even discuss this tonight?
If you go off of his bid from last year, Corey his was 200 yards total. Corey's setup will give you 220 yards total, and it will save you $125 from what Marty's is. What Marty gives us does not show us that he's dumping the trash. Now, I'm not against town cleanup, let's start there, because I want it to happen. But Marty doesn't give us any receipts from the landfill.
Right
so
there's
we
the
don't.
figure,
No,
on the
this
bottom,
is
on the
his-
bottom. It
Okay.
says what the landfill charges.
But all I'm saying is we don't have receipts. Have you seen his property up by Panora? We don't know that he's dumping it there, or Panora. I'm not saying he's not. But
we have
furthermore,
the
we
rec-
don't also have a receipt showing what he received for the metal. So he could be getting $800-900 and he's only giving us $425.
We didn't ask him to give us any of that.
Okay, I'm just stating, Mr. Geisinger has already said that his metal dumpsters, whatever he receives for metal is coming back.
But we
fully back
have to
the
pay
city.
$200 for each of those metal dumpsters.
Depending on what you have, you do, but you may get $600 back in metal, we don't know. I'm just comparing the bids.
I will tell you, Christine, and please listen, this is the way people kill volunteer efforts in this community. I've seen it over and over, is that you're not listening, you're lobbying as opposed to listening to people that have carried this off.
I'm not lobbying, I'm just saying, if you look at the numbers, this is
You're
what I
not coming
came
up
up
and saying, I
with.
can find 5 people to come help.
I
You're saying,
don't-
I'm trying
I
to work.
don't care which way we go, I'm just stating numbers.
You're giving, if this happens, you might save, I doubt it, but you may save a little bit.
I'm saying off of last year's numbers, this is what Corey comes in at compared to Marty Dairy. I'm not saying that we won't spend more with Corey, I'm not saying we're spending more, less. I'm just saying I compared Marty's numbers last year to Corey's numbers and that's all I'm saying.
But all the receipts from the Dare County landfill, Nadine has.
Okay, and that's fine,
And Marty has his own dumpster, not where he lives. He's got his own place where he takes his
Okay,
metal,
and
he
that's-
has a scale.
That's fine, I'm just
If
asking.
Corey had
if we have
440-yard dumpsters, I'd be fighting for him, folks.
I would say.
Just
This is,
stating, I didn't mean to get my throat
Okay.
choked out.
okay, if it takes 10 dumpsters for the trash, that's $2,000, and then 600 more for the metal, you're 2,600. We were at 1,800 net. Well,
1,700.
what were we at before the metal come back? Because let's just say that's equal
21, 25 for the
versus
40 yard.
26. I can't say it anymore plain.
But
I'm not gonna
we've done
exasperate
this
myself.
4 years with no trouble. And I said, one time, Jack Matthews come up, he had a full pickup And then he brought another pickup. Yes, he said, we don't have room yet. He took my own pickup to his place, left his till we had capacity. That's what, I know you've got to have these big.
And they're coming
dumpsters
again,
and
'cause they
the
moved.
yardage to get this
And it's
done right.
fine, I was just throwing
Okay.
numbers out there.
Oh,
That's all. I'm sorry I even said anything.
No, no.
Can you keep up with the
that's a
demand for your
discussion.
business?
Holy
I
cow.
believe so.
And we, as a city,
If I couldn't, I wouldn't be bidding it.
And it's local. Local money stays and benefits our town.
that was my next sentence, is, we always promote bringing new businesses to town and everything, and we're not helping our local business guys.
But you're at how many extra dollars for a volunteer effort here?
But like Bob said, last month, we just sent an extra 50,000 out the door to a outside vendor.
I did.
So, no, I didn't either. I'm just
So
saying,
I would,
I don't know why it makes a difference.
I would just like to say, in talking, and I'm just gonna bring talking with Eileen, the cities, and when we were talking about bidding processes and stuff. They told me that Stuart is making things way too hard, because we do this bidding process for every tiny little thing, and I'm guilty of it because I thought you had to do it. And they said, if you have procurement policy, and I don't know if we do, I don't think we do, and I think it would benefit the city if we had a procurement policy that would make everything fair and transparent on this. And they said, on a lot of these projects, if you've had a person that you have worked with over the years, doesn't matter what it is, mowing, dumpsters, whatever, for this type of project, you can just get them, and you avoid all this controversy and maybe one person pulling for this person and one person pulling for this person, and it turns into this cluster, and stuff like that.
You just said that if you use someone for years and years and years, that you can just go ahead and do it.
I did.
Is that what you just said?
No.
I'm just asking.
If you're happy with, you can do that.
You can.
You can.
Okay.
You can, if they're doing a good job, but there's not, it's just not, well, we've used you for 10 years, you're doing a crappy job, we're gonna continue to use you
I
either,
was just
that thing.
clarifying, that's what you just said.
But what happens if somebody else would like, a piece of the puzzle though too? Then what do we do? Because that's where we're at right now.
Well, that's why you
Yeah,
have,
and you're with
because,
about
because-
estimate
right.
2,600,
because we don't
But
have
we
a
didn't
procurement
technically
policy to
bid this
set
out.
this out.
We didn't
You know?
set specs
No.
and bid this out. We just asked for him to obtain numbers. That's all we asked. We really didn't bid this out. Because we didn't say, Corey, these are the specs, Marty, these are the specs. We just asked to obtain what his fees were. That's all we asked.
And this is the first year I've been asked, well, can somebody else bid it? For 3 years, I volunteered how many hours doing this. Went with Marty, he's done a good job. He's done code enforcement numerous times. I didn't get a second bid for code enforcement. Actually, I
That
said,
was
Call Marty.
before we had a local business doing it. I mean, what's not to say that we can't have our local business do
Yeah.
code enforcement cleanup if the price is right.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know why we're cutting people out. I mean, I don't care either way.
Hey, Corey. Also, if you want, I've got a skid loader here. I'll have a skid loader up there that day too. Smash some shit in.
But we've got the city backhoe too that we used for 3 years.
That's taking your city employee time and
And
hours.
then you're using comp time. Unless they volunteer their time.
No, that doesn't happen.
Like I said, I don't care.
I mean.
I don't care
know,
either way. I was just throwing numbers out. I personally would like to keep it in town. I like keeping stuff in town, promoting local businesses.
And Bob, I wanted to
But-
ask you a question here, and I know I'd like to see you for me, so. The numbers from Marty Deary, that's how many dumpsters he took for
Can you wait a
Robbie?
second, Mike? Thank you.
I said, on Marty's sheet, it says 540-yard dumpsters, is that the number he took to the landfill?
Yes.
Okay,
That's
And
200.
3 metal.
okay. So I just, okay, so he
And they-
took that, the other ones were free,
3,
The metals, yeah.
okay,
75 yards
right.
for the metal.
And then we got 425 back. So last year he cost us 1,700.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, minus the
Okay.
metal.
And with Corey's bid, we don't have a number for minus the metal. We could speculate what it could be.
That's why we better look, let's just say, without minus the metal.
Right.
Marty's at
And
21 something and Corey's gonna be,
2,000.
2,600.
2,600 with.
you're not
If we
counting the
don't-
metal dumpster.
Oh, the
We're-
metal,
Yeah, we're not counting the money we get back. We're just looking
Back
at
to
the
the metal.
overall price.
That's what you're looking at, is the people we work with, are comfortable with, are less, so you're gonna make it, most likely, I mean, so you're gonna make, if you make a decision that, you know, and you obviously had some conversation ahead.
I didn't have any conversation with anybody.
You haven't heard from anybody,
No,
okay.
like I said, I sat down this morning when I was going through my packet for the second time and
Okay.
figured out some numbers. You can see them right here.
So.
I had
well,
a,
that's-
excuse
that's
me, I
what-
had a conversation with my husband to make sure that my numbers were correct and I was figuring it correctly. I had that conversation, but that's it.
It's up to the council, but I'll tell you what, I said, it's blood, sweat, and tears going up there, and you got people waiting in line, just pick
So-
up after pick up. You've been up there, Mike.
Yeah.
You were up there part of it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I
This
was
will be
there.
our first time,
So
fourth time.
if we're looking just at comparing numbers, 2,600 is more than 2,125 without the metal. So
And Corey, give us our word that he could keep up, or he would keep up, right? Yeah. I'll make the motion to use Corey Geisinger for the dumpsters, for the town cleanup.
I'll second that.
Moved and second. How do you vote? Kirkpatrick,
Yes.
Renfro,
Yes,
Morgan,
Yeah.
Baba,
no.
and if this fails, I am gonna blame you and all the council here. Now, listen to me, because I've done this and I've seen the backup before, and if you gotta go to the landfill, you gotta go Clayton to get the metal dumped.
but here's the thing, just putting this out there. Last month, I didn't throw a fit when we sent all of our local dollars to Dexter. And I didn't say, when this goes to legal and the city gets sued, I'm blaming you, I'm blaming you, I'm blaming you, I'm blaming whoever. I didn't do that. So that's not a fair statement to say, I'm gonna blame whoever because we kept our local dollars here in town. So with all respect, Mayor, that was a little much.
I just hope it
Made-
works, because I've done this.
Well, I
Let
didn't
them
throw
do
a
it
fit.
themselves.
I didn't throw a fit, and Mick Askren constantly makes comments to me, which is very unacceptable, and you do not stop him, which could be legal action also.
And
So it's not appropriate for you to start pointing fingers.
Who's good now?
Really, Mick?
Will
Yeah.
now be, okay, we're moving to bucket full, bucket full, anybody has anything?
I guess I would request that people in town try to recycle more. I've driven around and there's numerous plastic and cardboard and stuff in the trash. I mean, Amy's charging people extra for all this, but you
The
should
information we're
recycle.
putting in the paper and online about this cleanup is pushing two people to recycle, don't bring it, because we're probably gonna push some of it away. There's no use the city needs to be paying that tonnage. We had one local business bring about 1,000 pounds of paper a couple of years ago. It could have been recycled. We're gonna push back on that. So it is, and we need to do better as a community to get that done.
What's the date on that again, Bob?
29th and 30th. It will be in next week's Stuart Herald, plus it'll be online here soon.
So,
Is it gonna be on it'll be on the city's website, right?
And there's a 2 pickup per household equivalency limit, the typical things we can't take.
Ash, so our special meeting, we're going to address the road, the cemetery stuff, and make sure Dave's okay with numbers on phase 4, correct? Or are we just done with that? I mean, he voted for it, so I don't. But
I don't know if
it'll
we're gonna have a
either be,
special-
okay, so we're gonna have a special meeting, and it's gonna be the road, because we need to get that addressed. And the committee stuff, the cemetery committee stuff, because mowing's coming and we need to get that addressed.
Yes, we'll do that. It all depends on the communication with the rest of the county too.
Yeah,
And
well, I mean,
That's the rest.
but we need to be pushing for timelines because we need to get this stuff
So we might
addressed.
have a council meeting, special council meeting, might not. It all depends on.
No, I think we need one because we're gonna be talking about the cemetery stuff. We have to get it figured
Okay.
out.
Yeah, we do need that.
And we need to be talking about this policy.
I think it's gonna benefit us.
So we'll
It's gonna
decide
stop a
on
lot
that.
of the bickering.
Okay.
That's the goal. That's the goal right there.
Okay, I got all these items for the special meeting. We'll find out from Jim about the communication with the county.
Okay.
We are in a public forum.
Nick?
Before we go there, I want to thank Bob and Dico for handling that cleanup day for years. They need to be really recognized for doing that, besides the point that we've been arguing about. Thank you so much, both of you, for taking on that project. And it doesn't matter who's gonna handle the dumpster, that's different issue, but thank you.
I got a couple things about that. Nick, you got something?
I just wondered if there's any way that, this paperwork here could be presented to your attorney and him get back to you, Ash.
Yes.
And you and I have a meeting about this.
Yeah,
Instead of having all this squabbling and all this stuff with the council.
Well, it's gotta come back to council. for-
I'm not talking to you.
Okay.
That's enough, Nick.
That's
Okay.
unacceptable.
Right. We're gonna scan it to the attorney tomorrow. When I get the response, I will communicate with you, man.
Okay,
Right?
I would
That's
appreciate it.
Right, no problem.
Thank you.
And then it will come
And
to
then
the special
everything
meeting.
has to be approved by the council.
Okay.
Just need to, okay.
Kevin, did you have something?
As far as your code enforcement, is that just based on complaints? Or,
He goes around town.
so,
Both.
and I'm not complaining by any means,
Yeah.
but what about the dilapidated house that's across the street from me that hasn't been touched in 8 years?
Well, that's
So
another.
you're telling me he goes around town?
That's another deal that I wish Jason was still here,
Is that the guy that
Yes.
worked on his tree but hasn't touched the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
but
Again, I'm not complaining,
when
no,
Jason-
yard up and stuff, but I'm
when
just
Jason
saying.
first started this, it's a tricky situation. Warren can contest to this. That's the reason we got a pink and polka dotted house in town.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the first one Jason worked on. Yes,
Polka dot.
yes, we can move forward on some of them, but it's a tricky situation legally.
It just seems like certain things are picked on and other things are just completely
But the
missed. They
house-
hit every street in town once a month.
But the house right next door got tore down.
Yep.
Co's got tore down, and we're only limited to so much money we can do.
Well, the one next door, that one's the banks and they just.
Yeah, the bank, but then
But they probably
Stallman's
were-
house they burned.
Had to do something.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and then there again, we have the LMI money. We gave so much to Mike Johnson, he's rehabbed a lot of them rather than tear them down. Schumas is a perfect example.
Do we have any applicants for the Blight housing yet? That have been turned in?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
we pushed so hard for that and then
Yeah.
nothing.
Okay. I got a couple things too. I asked James, he lives out in the new housing development, if he gets a list of what you can and can't have, campers, trailers out there, he said he probably saw that. But Gene Skellinger had mentioned that a new family in town has dogs and don't know if they're licensed. They said, well, they put it in the utility once a year. I said, I think that needs to be in a packet when the homeowner comes to pay their electric bill. You have to have the dog license, different covenants, so they know ahead of time.
Were you working on something, I mean, because you have so much time,
Yeah.
on a new homeowner packet?
The chamber is.
The chamber is, okay.
I can speak to
Okay,
that. So
Ryan.
we're putting together, so the chamber in the past has done packets for the new housing development. But we're trying to redesign that to where, we've handed out to all new residents to Stuart, letting them know what's available, businesses in the community, kind of all that information. So we're working on putting that together.
And we can we add that in there?
Yeah.
But are there covenants out there that say you have to have that cover your dog? I mean, I know
No.
you guys have stuff for campers and stuff
For
like that,
campers
but
and trailers, that's what I'm saying. A lot of people, they get a notice and say, well, I didn't know I could have
who
have a
enforces
camper.
those
It-
covenants out there? Because there is a
Well,
camper out there.
See, that's the thing, that.
Nobody.
Obviously, because I saw the camper
We
when we
just
were driving
changed-
around to look at the.
Change the
that
ordinance
section.
of the code enforcement guy before, that's the reason Ed quit, because he says legally I cannot go out there and cover things like that.
we need to have a different discussion about that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, anybody else have
Sorry.
anything?
No, it's good.
Anything,
Good.
council?
Yeah, everybody.